Do you know my name? I am Satan, the adversary, the tempter, the one who schemes tirelessly to undo faith. And yet, do you know how many times I, Satan, have fallen flat on my face despite my grand plans? Let me tell you, it's not for lack of trying. And trust me, I've tried everything. From the shadows of Eden to the desolate wilderness where Christ fasted, I've crafted temptations, stirred chaos, and whispered doubts. But nothing frustrates me more than when my efforts are met with faith. Oh, how I despise that resilience. Let me share one such thorn in my side. I thought I was clever. I thought I was strong. But then came Job. Oh, Job, I took everything he held dear, his family, his wealth, his health. I left him sitting in ashes, thinking, finally, I've done it. I watched as his once thriving lands became barren, his loved ones were taken from him, and his body was afflicted with painful sores. Surely this would break him. Surely he would curse the name of God and prove my point. But no. Instead, he looked up to the heavens and said, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised," as written in Job 1:21. Can you imagine my frustration? To witness such defiance in the face of utter ruin, it's enough to make even me question my methods. And yet, that's Job for you. A thorn in my side, and a testament to the resilience of faith. And you'd think that would stop me. But no, I'm persistent, if nothing else. Call it dedication or maybe sheer stubbornness. You might admire it if it weren't so embarrassing. Every time I fail, I tell myself, next time will be different. And so I return with even more elaborate schemes, only to watch them crumble. Take Job, for example. After his resilience, you'd think I'd pack up and move on. But no. I tried again, with Jesus in the wilderness, with Paul through afflictions, and even with you, every time you doubt your worth or your faith. Why do I persist, you ask? Because I must. My pride won't let me quit, and my hatred fuels me. Every small victory is a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, I'll succeed. But here's the truth. Faith is my greatest obstacle. It stands in my way, mocking me, reminding me of every time I've failed. And yet, I keep going. Call it determination, or call it madness. Either way, I'm not stopping. But Job was just the beginning. Let me share with you some of my most humiliating moments. Moments where I thought I had won, only to be proven wrong again and again. There's a certain sting that comes with failure, especially when you've convinced yourself that this time you'll succeed. You plan, you execute, and for a moment you think victory is yours. But then, faith intervenes. That unwavering belief, that quiet strength, it undoes everything I work for. Take, for example, my attempts with Jesus in the wilderness. I thought I had him. Or my schemes to silence Paul through suffering. Surely he would falter. But no. Time and time again, I find myself outmatched by something I cannot control. Stay with me, and you'll see why faith terrifies me more than anything else. It's not just a barrier, it's a fortress. And every time I try to breach it, I'm reminded of just how powerless I truly am. There was that time in the wilderness. Jesus was weak, starving even, and I thought, this is it. This is my chance. The sun beat down relentlessly, the air was dry, and every step seemed heavier than the last. I watched him wander, his body frail, his lips parched. Surely, I thought, no one could resist me in such a state. So I said, turn these stones into bread, bow down to me, and I'll give you everything. My words were laced with promise, temptation dripping from every syllable. I painted pictures of kingdoms, of power, of relief from suffering. I whispered to him that it could all be his, if only he would acknowledge me. And what did he say? Worship the Lord your God and serve him only, as written in Matthew 4:10. It was like a slap across the face. In an instant, my plans unraveled. I had underestimated him, and the weight of my failure hit me like the heat of that cursed desert. You'd think I'd learn from that, wouldn't you? But no. Every time I see someone weak, someone desperate, I think back to that moment. I tell myself it will be different this time. But faith always finds a way to defy me, just as it did in that wilderness. But that wasn't the end of my attempts. I circled back, offering him more. I took him to the pinnacle of the temple and said, "Throw yourself down? Surely the angels will catch you. Prove to the world who you are." I thought my challenge was irresistible. After all, who wouldn't want to demonstrate their power in front of an audience? But again, he refused. "Do not put the Lord your God to the test," he said. And once more I was left grasping at straws. Desperate, I made my final move. I showed him the kingdoms of the world, their glory shining like jewels in the sunlight. "All this can be yours," I said, "if you bow down and worship me." It was my boldest play, the culmination of my schemes. But his answer came swiftly, cutting through my ambitions like a blade. "Away from me, Satan. Worship the Lord your God and serve him only." That wilderness haunts me. It was a stage where I thought I'd triumph, only to face one of my greatest defeats. And yet I persist. Every new opportunity feels like the one where I'll finally succeed. But deep down, I know faith is my greatest adversary, and it is a foe I have yet to conquer. And then there was the cross. Oh, I celebrated that one. I thought I had won. The pain, the humiliation, the death, it was everything I had worked for. I had him right where I wanted, nailed to a tree, his followers scattered and broken. It was perfect. I didn't stop there, of course. No loose ends. I sealed the tomb, rolled the stone into place, stationed guards, and double-checked everything. Nothing was left to chance. For 3 days, I reveled in what I thought was my ultimate triumph. The silence of the tomb felt like a victory hymn, and I believed for once that I had outsmarted him. But 3 days later, surprise, as written in Matthew 28:6, "He is not here. He has risen, just as he said." The stone was rolled away, the guards fled in terror, and the tomb was empty. My victory crumbled in an instant, leaving me grasping at the remains of a plan I thought was foolproof. Can you imagine my frustration? I had orchestrated everything to perfection, only to be undone by a power greater than anything I could comprehend. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a humiliation. I had underestimated him again, and the weight of my failure was almost unbearable. But even then, I couldn't stop. That's the thing about pride. It blinds you. I told myself it was a fluke, that next time would be different. But deep down, I knew. The resurrection wasn't just a loss for me. It was the ultimate declaration of his power. And no matter how many schemes I devise, that empty tomb stands as a reminder of just how powerless I truly am. The scene at the tomb wasn't just a moment of defeat. It was a spectacle of my failure. The earth shook, the heavens rejoiced, and my carefully laid plans unraveled in the blink of an eye. The guards I had stationed, men I thought were unwavering, fled like frightened children. The stone, immovable by human strength, was effortlessly rolled away. And the tomb? Empty. Completely and undeniably empty. You might wonder why I even tried. Did I really believe that I could keep him contained? The truth is, I didn't just believe. I was certain. Certainty is a dangerous thing, especially for someone like me. It makes you reckless, blind to the possibility of failure. I had convinced myself that the cross was the end, that his death was my ultimate victory. But I was wrong. What haunts me most is not just the failure itself, but what it represents. The resurrection was more than a moment. It was a message. A declaration that even in death I cannot win. Every time someone speaks of that empty tomb, it's like a dagger in my pride. It reminds me that no matter how elaborate my schemes, they are nothing in the face of true faith and divine power. Even now, I try to rewrite the story, to plant doubt in the hearts of those who hear it. Maybe it didn't happen, I whisper. Maybe it's just a myth. But deep down, I know the truth. That tomb, that single empty tomb, is the greatest proof of my failure, and it is a failure I can never escape. And don't get me started on Paul. I threw everything I had at him. Afflictions, hardships, you name it. I whispered doubts into his mind, hoping to erode his resolve. I stirred up persecutions against him, sent him to prison, and even afflicted him with what he called a thorn in the flesh. Surely, I thought, no one could withstand so much. But what did he say? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness, as stated in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. Really? Who talks like that? I expected despair, maybe even anger at the God he served. Instead, he embraced his suffering as if it were a badge of honor. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he used his afflictions as fuel for his mission. He wrote letters from prison, letters that would inspire millions for generations. Every chain I placed on him seemed to strengthen his faith. Every setback I orchestrated became a platform for him to preach the very gospel I sought to silence. Can you imagine my frustration? No matter what I did, Paul turned it into an opportunity to glorify God. It was as if my efforts were helping his cause rather than hindering it. To this day, his words echo in the hearts of believers, a constant reminder of my failure. Paul didn't just resist me, he thrived in spite of me. And that's the part that stings the most. His life stands as a testament to the power of grace, a power that renders all my schemes utterly useless. Even his thorn in the flesh, the very affliction I thought would break him, became a source of strength. He called it a reminder of God's power, a tool to keep him humble. Humble, as if humility could somehow transform suffering into something glorious. And yet for him it did. I tried to silence him through exhaustion, through betrayal, through every imaginable hardship. Shipwrecks, hunger, sleepless nights. I piled them on, one after another. But each trial only deepened his resolve. He spoke of running a race, of fighting a good fight, as if the very act of enduring was a victory in itself. And here's the worst part. His words outlived him. Those letters he penned in chains, they became the foundation for faith in countless hearts. Every line, every phrase stands as a monument to my failure. It's as if Paul himself is still here, whispering truths that unravel my lies. Paul's life is a paradox I cannot unravel. A man who found strength in weakness, victory in surrender, and life in the face of death. If there's one name that reminds me of the futility of my efforts, it's his. And no matter how many times I revisit his story, I'm left with the same bitter truth. I lost. Oh, and let's not forget David. I whispered pride into his heart, thinking I had him. I showed him his kingdom, his power, and his victories in battle. Look at all you've accomplished, I said. Surely you deserve even more. It was subtle, just a small nudge to let his pride take root. And it worked, at least for a while. He counted his armies, reveling in his strength. He took what wasn't his, convinced that he could act without consequence. I watched as he stumbled, thinking, this is it, I've won. But then he turned around and prayed, create in me a pure heart, O God, as written in Psalm 51:10. The nerve. He didn't just ask for forgiveness. He poured out his soul, broken and contrite. Every word was like a dagger to my plans. To make matters worse, his failure didn't destroy him. It transformed him. He became more humble, more devoted. Instead of falling further into my grasp, he climbed out of the pit I had dug for him. And that's the worst part about David. His ability to turn even his greatest failures into opportunities for redemption. It's infuriating, really. No matter how many times I whisper pride, envy, or greed into the hearts of kings, there's always the chance they'll pull a David on me. And let me tell you, there's nothing more frustrating than watching someone use my own schemes to draw closer to God. Now, let me ask you, have you ever felt like giving up? Like life was just too hard? That's me. I'm the one whispering in your ear telling you you're not good enough, or it's hopeless. But here's the thing. You humans are so annoyingly resilient. I work tirelessly in the shadows, planting seeds of doubt and despair. When you scroll through social media and see someone else's perfect life, I'm there, whispering, why can't your life be like that? When you fail at something, I'm quick to remind you, you'll never be good enough. And let's talk about ambition. Oh, how I love to twist your dreams into obsessions. A little bit of success isn't enough, is it? I make you crave more, push harder, and sacrifice the things that truly matter, your family, your health, your peace of mind. Just one more goal, I whisper, then you'll be happy. But are you? Then there's the loneliness. In a world more connected than ever, I've mastered the art of making you feel isolated. I convince you that no one understands, that no one truly cares. Why bother, I say. You're all alone in this. But here's the thing I hate the most. You don't stay down. Somehow, despite my best efforts, you humans get back up. You pray, you reach out, you find hope where I've left despair. It's maddening, really. For every whisper I plant, there's a voice of faith that drowns me out. And that's what makes you so frustratingly resilient. No matter how many lies I tell, there's always a truth stronger than my deceit. And every time you choose to believe it, I lose. I even try to use your past against you. Remember that mistake you made? I whisper. No one will ever forgive you for that. Not even God. I weave shame into your thoughts, hoping to bind you with it. And yet, you break free. You remind yourself that forgiveness is real, that grace exists. It's infuriating. And don't get me started on fear. I fan the flames of your anxieties, convincing you that the worst will always happen. What if you fail? I whisper. What if you're not enough? I see the hesitation in your eyes, the way you pause, doubting your every move. For a moment, I think I've won. But then you surprise me. You take a step forward. You face your fears, even when every fiber of your being screams at you to stop. You find courage in places I can't reach, and it's like watching my schemes crumble in slow motion. Even in moments of joy, I try to slip in unnoticed. You don't deserve this, I whisper. It won't last. I try to taint your happiness with worry, to turn your celebrations into fleeting moments of doubt. But somehow, you hold on to gratitude, to faith, and my efforts go to waste. You humans are maddeningly hopeful. No matter how many times I knock you down, you rise again. And that, above all, is why you frustrate me. Your resilience isn't just a testament to your strength, it's a reminder of my failures. Every time you choose hope, faith, or love, it's like you're standing against me, declaring that I cannot win. Take a moment to reflect. Think about all the times you've overcome. Do you really think that was your doing? No, that was him turning my best efforts into something good. It's almost enough to make me want to quit. Almost. You see, faith is a peculiar thing. It's invisible, intangible, and yet it has the power to undo everything I work for. When you face trials, loss, pain, failure, I whisper in your ear, you can't do this. Just give up. But then, against all odds, you pray. You find strength in something greater than yourself. And just like that, my schemes fall apart. Take Job, for example. I threw every possible calamity at him. I took his family, his wealth, his health. Yet, in his despair, he clung to his faith. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised, he said. How do you fight against that? You can't. And it's not just Job. Time and again, I've seen people rise from their lowest moments because of faith. They forgive when they've been wronged, love when they've been hurt, and hope when everything seems lost. For every ounce of despair I plant, faith brings a tidal wave of resilience. What frustrates me the most is that faith doesn't just counteract my work, it transforms it. I intend for pain to break you, yet it makes you stronger. I mean for shame to cripple you, yet it brings redemption. No matter how clever my schemes, faith turns them into stepping stones toward something greater. So, as much as I want to quit, I can't. My pride won't let me. But I'll admit, every time I see faith triumph over my efforts, it feels like I'm fighting a battle I've already lost. And that, dear listener, is the power of faith, my greatest adversary. And here's the beauty of it all. Faith isn't just for the strong. It's in the weakest moments, when I think I have you cornered, that faith shines brightest. It's in the whispered prayers of the broken-hearted, the quiet resolve of those who refuse to give up. Faith is a force I cannot predict, a power I cannot control. So take a moment, dear listener, and think about what faith has done in your life. Every time you've chosen to believe, to trust, to hope, you've beaten me. And for that, I grudgingly admit, you have my respect. My end is already written, as declared in Revelation 20:10, and the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire. It's not a guess or a possibility, it's a certainty, etched into the fabric of time itself. And let me tell you, it's maddening. Imagine knowing the outcome of the story before it even ends. No matter how hard I try, how many schemes I devise, it all leads to the same conclusion. The lake of fire. Finality. Defeat. I've seen glimpses of it, its unyielding flames, its endless despair. It's not just the pain that terrifies me, it's the permanence. The knowledge that there will be no escape, no second chances, no schemes left to plot. It's the ultimate prison, and it's waiting for me. And yet here I am, still trying. Call it defiance, call it delusion, but I can't stop. Every whisper, every temptation, every lie I plant is my way of clawing at the inevitable, even if it's just to delay the end for a little while longer. But you, dear listener, you hold the key to my downfall. Every time you choose faith over fear, love over hate, truth over lies, you accelerate my defeat. Your prayers, your acts of kindness, your unwavering belief, they're the nails in my coffin, the bricks in the path that leads me to that lake. So remember this, my end is not just my story, it's yours too. Every time you stand firm in your faith, you remind me of the power I can never overcome. And for that, I despise you, even as I grudgingly admire your strength. The lake of fire isn't just a place, it's a symbol of everything I've lost. Power, control, pride, all consumed in its unrelenting heat. And the worst part? I've known all along that this would be my fate. Every action, every scheme, every whisper was an attempt to escape it, but deep down, I knew it was futile. And yet, you humans, with your flawed hearts and imperfect lives, are the ones who seal my doom. Your faith, no matter how small or wavering, is the weapon that undoes me. It's ironic, isn't it? That the very creation I sought to corrupt is the one that ensures my end. So as I stare into the abyss of my future, let me leave you with this thought. The power you hold is greater than you realize. Every choice you make for good, every act of faith, every refusal to give in to despair, it all leads to the moment when I am cast into that lake, never to return. And for that I hate you, but I also fear you. Every prayer you say reminds me of my failure. Every act of faith is a wound I cannot heal. Go now and strengthen your faith, for in doing so, you help bring my downfall closer. But don't stop there. Your faith is not just a personal victory, it's a beacon for others. Every time you choose hope over despair, love over hate, you're not just defying me, you're inspiring those around you. Imagine the ripple effect of your courage, your persistence, your belief in something greater than yourself. I see it every day. A kind word to a stranger, a helping hand to someone in need, a moment of forgiveness when it's easier to hold a grudge, these are the weapons you wield against me. And let me tell you, they cut deeper than you realize. For every act of faith, you're building a fortress that I cannot breach. And yet I still try. I whisper doubts into your mind, hoping to weaken your resolve. I plant seeds of fear, envy, and anger, hoping they'll take root. But when you stand firm, when you choose to believe, it's like watching my schemes crumble before my eyes. So I urge you, keep going. Pray more, love more, forgive more. Each of these actions is a nail in the coffin of my defeat. Each of these moments is a step closer to the day when my reign of lies and deceit will come to an end. You have more power than you think. Use it, not just for yourself, but for those who look to you for strength. Your faith is a light in the darkness, and every time you let it shine, you remind me of a truth I cannot escape. My end is inevitable, and it's coming closer with every act of grace you show. And remember, faith is not a destination, it's a journey. Each day brings new challenges and new whispers of doubt from me, but also new opportunities to grow stronger. When you falter, and you will, don't despair. Get back up. Every time you rise again, it's another blow to my pride, another reminder that my efforts are ultimately futile. So take your faith and let it shine. Let it inspire others. Let it be the light that guides those who are lost. Together, your faith is a force I cannot withstand. And for that, I grudgingly admit you are stronger than I ever anticipated.